Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and we're going to finish up with part 2 of our subject of social networking here. In our last podcast, we talked about MySpace and we talked about Facebook. This time we're going to be talking about YouTube, Second Life, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Plaxo, and how we can interact with those. Tom, tell us a little bit about YouTube. Why would a business need to be on YouTube?
Well, one of the things that we didn't talk about in part 1 was the idea of searchability. See, the reason that these sites have done so well and the reason they're top 5 properties is because you're searching on these sites. They're almost search engines is what they are. But the content that's out there is so unique and it's still so, I guess, focused that you can find things that are real important to you. Someone you went to high school with, someone that works for a specific company, someone that you went to high school with that has a certain kind of skill that you might be looking for that you want to,
or works for a company that you want to get business from.
That's right. So it's there's search engines that have the great content, and what YouTube has done is it's just saying, well, let's have a different way of posting content, and we'll let you post the content, and you still great and easy to search, but the content's now in video form, and most businesses, if they don't, they should have videos about their services and products and what they do and their history and so forth. And those videos should be posted on YouTube because you've got to think of it as a search engine where people go and find content that you have, value that you have to offer.
Couple of things about YouTube is since Google owns them, they are placing quite a bit of emphasis on YouTube content in the search engine rankings.
Yes.
So if you search for something and there's a video out there on that subject, it'll very likely show up in the rankings. So it's being emphasized by Google. And the other thing about both audio and video content is if you think about yourself versus your competitors, it's likely that your competitors are not yet slick enough to be adding regularly audio and video content to the web. So in a way, you're in a smaller pool of competitors as you're adding this type of content.
Now, going back to the last podcast that we mentioned, as far as MySpace, like having at least, even if MySpace is not where your customer is, you still need to be on MySpace. Same thing happens with YouTube, is make sure your company name is in your profile. Like your name, it might be Bill Smith's Real Estate. Well, you put your YouTube name as YouTube/Bill Smith Real Estate. That way people can find you if they're searching in Google, it's indexed right up there.
Right, exactly. And it's just like what we said in the last podcast. If you have something interesting to say, you should be saying it in as many media as possible.
And the great part about YouTube is you upload all of your video content to YouTube, and then it can be posted on all these other social networking sites like Facebook, MySpace.
Right. It's easy to grab a link and post to it.
Put it on your own website. It's a shortcut
for
putting stuff on your own website.
Yeah, if you don't have a video server, it's cheap and it's free. It's cheap because it is free.
Yeah. And the minute you post a video, you're building a dialogue because people that use YouTube will come in and quote on your video. And whether it's a business video or something you do for fun, you're going to get feedback from people.
And seems like a simple point, but like with anything else, your blog, YouTube, your website, you need to have a keyword focus that is well known in your company, and that keyword focus has to be reflected every time you post anything on the web. You have to be true to your keywords.
Well, you also need, and when you're posting, one of the biggest things to really look for is to make sure that your posts aren't backfiring on you. If you have any inappropriate content that you've posted on there or replying to somebody who might be a customer of yours who might be unhappy, who might post something.
Yeah.
Like that never happens online. How do you resolve that? You've got to be really wise and smart when you're going to do those posts.
Well, what I love to see is is when you see someone's post and you see something that says see other posts by this user. Because what's happening is not only are the users ranking the video or whatever content, they're ranking each other too. So, it all works out in the end. If you have something of value and somebody comes in and just says, hey, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, well, go look at their other posts because more than likely everything they've seen is terrible, So
yeah.
you kind of rank each other. It's real community. It's kind of like, well, everybody likes this guy, but they don't like that guy. And it works the same online as it does offline.
That whole subject of reputation monitoring, though, I mean, there's people that's their job to watch the reputation of the company on the web.
Yeah.
And personal reputation as well,
And I see that growing as a position here shortly within some of the
people
the
are buying up.
companies.
Oh, absolutely.
People are
If you're in web
buying up-
marketing, you got to know it.
When people buy a domain name, they're buying up the version of companyname.com, right? But they're also buying company name sucks.com, like VerizonSucks.com. You'll get an earful if you go some of these places.
And I want to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is one of it's probably the top Web 2.0 site for business and for business
Absolutely.
people. And once again, it really starts with, what size company you have, what is the strategy you want to use LinkedIn for, but the fundamentals are the same. It's a community that's being built, and it's a way to interact with people. The thing that happens on LinkedIn, which folks need to still understand, is that you can't go out there and be an aggressive salesperson. It's not going to work that way. You're going to have people just turned off. You've got to go in and connect with folks over value, the value you bring and the connection that you have. And really avoid this idea of, I want to be your friend, and then you dig a little deeper and you find out it's an Amway thing, or it's multi-level marketing.
Well, it's funny on LinkedIn that you mentioned that. One of the best ways that I've seen people build their reputations and build their network on LinkedIn is to answer questions. There's one thing that LinkedIn has is you can post a question to everyone in LinkedIn.
Right.
Say, hey, I got a question.
Can we take a step backwards?
Sure.
We talked about YouTube. Everybody knows what YouTube is. There's probably a lot of people who have no idea what LinkedIn even is. So what is LinkedIn?
If you haven't heard of LinkedIn, go to linkedin.com, set up an account. Just set up an account. That's about the best way to put it. LinkedIn is the website for business networking. It's one of the few sites that I have seen companies have let down their firewall to be able to let their employees go, their salespeople go to troll for business, if you will, because they can make qualified connections on LinkedIn and actually generate business. And it's got to be appropriate. Like we talked about, you don't want to be if you're a pushy salesman online, it actually turns off people quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like anything else. The quality is better than the quantity. I mean, you don't want to go out there and have 1,500 contacts on LinkedIn. That doesn't do you any good. What you want to have is maybe a couple dozen really good contacts where there's some really meaningful conversations going on there. And just keep in mind that, once again, LinkedIn is also a search engine, and people will come across the people you're dealing with, and the dialogues that you've been building. And I think it's real important to say, too, that LinkedIn works real hard to establish communities within LinkedIn.
Absolutely. You can join groups. You can join groups. You can be connected to people several different ways.
There's an e-marketing community that I'm part of. There's a speakers community that I just joined. And what's interesting is I didn't pursue these. I just got emails from people saying, hey, you should join this community. And I thought, okay, yeah, you're right, I should. And if you go and look at those communities, there are people posting questions. So in some respects, LinkedIn is a place where you can go directly and find business, because people will say, hey, does anybody know how to use Joomla? Does anyone know a good Joomla developer?
And you post that on there. You post it as a question, and the people who answer the questions, they go, hey, I'm having an event in Chicago. I'm looking for people. Where should I start to find people to do the graphics in Chicago? Should I do it in Chicago, or should I do it from New York?
Yeah, so it's one of the sites, and not so much with Facebook and other sites, but LinkedIn. There's people out there looking for you and asking for you right now. So once again, if you're going to go in and market yourself on LinkedIn, though, don't go in with the attitude of, hey, it's fish in a barrel, man. I'm going to go and sell up a storm. Go in with the attitude of, I'm going to add value to these people. I'm going to give them some content. I don't really care if they hire me or not, but I'm going to help them figure out what it is they need. And you know what the end result will be is that you will get business.
That's a key point, Tom, because the bottom line with all these social networks is be a contributor.
Well,
if
be
someone's
the
asking
expert.
questions, go be the expert. Contribute what you know to these networks, and you'll get more out of them.
And that's what people are doing with LinkedIn, and that's with the questions. That's where it's really important. Each person knows where they are the expert.
Absolutely.
And just find the groups where you're the expert and answer questions. Be of service to people. One of the worst things that I think I've ever seen anybody put on LinkedIn or Facebook or anything, they're going, hey, I'm looking for a graphic designer. And they go, hey, call me. It's like, okay, I understand it's like an advertising out there with a help wanted sign, but unless you're going to give value to everybody there in the post, it's not as much value to post it in front of everybody.
That's a good. Let's say I'm not a graphic designer, but let's say I was in the case of this post. If I saw that come up and someone said, I'm looking for a graphic designer, this is how I would respond. I would say, first of all, what kind of design are you looking for? I'd ask a couple questions. And then I also say, because it sounds like you might be new at this, I've included an article I found on the web about how to find a graphic designer. And I also included in here a few basic steps to working with graphic designers. So I hope you find this information useful.
And right there, it set you up as the expert. And they're going to go, who is this person? They'll click on your link because everything is linked within LinkedIn. They click on your name. It comes up, oh, this person is a graphic designer. I'm going to call them because they didn't sell. They gave me all the information I needed, didn't try to sell me.
Right.
I'm interested in talking to them.
So the bottom line then is to let the sale come to you in all cases, basically.
In my experience in social networking, that is 100% of what it is. Be the expert. Let the sale come to you. Don't go get the sale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be ready. Do your homework before you get into LinkedIn. So if you're going to put yourself in like a graphic designer's community, then you better be good at graphic design and good at teaching people what graphic design is about. Mm-hmm. And then that'll turn into sales for you. So I think this whole idea of social networking can work tremendously for you no matter what size business you are. It can work for the small entrepreneurs. It can work for a small, medium-sized company. But the key thing is to have the strategy to understand your target market and what they're doing on these websites, and to be appropriate when you do get on and you log in and start posting content.
Okay. Something that a lot of people talk about is Twitter. And Twitter is really, really big. And for those who don't know about Twitter, once again, go to twitter.com, sign up, get yourself an account. It's a microblog. It allows you to only post 140 characters, not words. So you got roughly 2 sentences that you can post.
Right.
And originally when it started up, people would get on there and say, I'm taking a shower. I'm eating a sandwich. Well, clearly we don't care what somebody does moment to moment because it really has no effect on our lives, our businesses, and generating money.
Right.
However, newer users of Twitter have found ways to post information and push information out there that is relevant. And so within 2 sentences, they have something that actually can help you in your business.
So how does it actually work, Glenn?
Well, funny you should ask, Dennis. One of the things that I was talking about, I mentioned previously, is Timothy Ferriss, the author of 4 Hour Workweek. He posts on Twitter. And the things he posts are things that light him up. He might talk about a dance competition that's coming up. He might talk about traveling across the country, and you could follow on a blog. He might have a new movie. Prime example here, and this is what's happening more and more, people who have a lot of networks on Twitter with a lot of people following him. He was in Los Angeles and had a whole bunch of tickets for the movie premiere for the latest James Bond film. And he was out and said, hey, I'm out here at Hollywood and Vine. I got 50 tickets to the premiere. If you guys can make it down here, come see the movie with me. Now, this was not this is somebody who's the author of 4 Hour Workweek. He's not doing this as a ploy. He's doing it as like, hey, I've got these movie tickets. Come and join me. Let's have a good time. Mm-hmm. So those people that are in L.A. make their way over to Hollywood and Vine and get the tickets and go see the movie. If he's in Seattle, and I had a friend of mine do this too. They were in Seattle and they said, we're looking for a good place to eat. So I gave them a list of 5 restaurants to go eat at. And all they do is access your network. I have a question. I have a problem. I have a concern. I have this. Can somebody help me?
So from a business perspective, let's say you work at an internet marketing company. Would you use Twitter to tell people about a new article you've written, to point them to things that exist on other places on the web?
Absolutely. Like what you would do is you would post, just got done talking about with the podcast for social networking.
I just did that actually on my Twitter.
And then it posts it, through TinyURL, or is it truncating the messages automatically these days?
No, it gave me the exact message I just put on there.
So what will happen is people will use like TinyURL, some of these other websites to actually truncate long and extended. Like if you've got a YouTube video, you've got a horrendous URL that you have to type in. It'll actually truncate it and make it smaller.
Yeah.
You just say visit here for it. Now, back to the other social networking things, you don't want to be the guy that goes, hey, yo, look at my blog, look at my blog, look at my blog. It's like, okay, we know you have a blog and we know you have great content, but we don't care. We'll go there when we need to. Mm-hmm. So if you start posting other things, hey, unbelievable thing right now, got 2 extra tickets for the Ultimate Fighting Championship that's happening. Does anybody want to go? I got 2 extra tickets.
Or if you're a domain expert and you find an article that you find really interesting that has nothing to do with something you've written, you can point your fans. So if you're on Twitter, how do you get more people to discover you?
Well, the great thing with Twitter is you can follow anybody. The whole point of Twitter is following people. And when you follow somebody, you automatically get their updates.
Right, and I think that Twitter's going to work real well for people that need fans. I mean, that was a good way of putting it. I think that Twitter for the average business, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to figure out how to use it for the average business because it is more of a one-on-one. Like if you're an author or a speaker or a consultant, and people want to follow you because they want to know what the latest cool thing is that's happening. If you're a business, you might have to have the personality of a business, and if you're doing that, LinkedIn might be a better place to do it.
Well, I was also mentioning before is like Comcast has a page on Twitter, and a lot of people are starting to put larger companies are putting people on Twitter that their job is to Twitter, and their job is to scour Twitter for posts that include Comcast.
Yeah.
Now there was a situation that happened. I want to say it was probably maybe a month and a half ago with Advil. And what had happened is Advil had posted this online advertisement about baby wearing. And it says, hey, the new fad is wearing your baby. You know, the little like cloth hangers.
Baby carriers.
Like
right.
the baby carrier. But it's like they call it, it's baby wearing. So it's a fashion statement. And they kind of poked fun at it. Advil poked fun at it and said, hey, baby wearing, if it hurts your back, we know it hurts your back, so take Advil. That's pretty much the gist of it. Well, one of the groups on Twitter, because people will form little groups, unofficial groups, if you will, and they're the Twitter moms. They got all up in arms about it. And they had, within a couple of hours, you had millions of people that knew about this ad.
Wow. That
was just an online ad. Within 2 days, Advil took it off, and it was no longer on the website because there was such momentum behind it.
Oh, yeah.
And, being a guy, it's like I really didn't wear my kids a whole lot. So looking at it from a standpoint, I was more amused at the whole process and how it literally, an online force and a social networking standpoint, changed advertising, advertising strategy.
You've got people that are doing advertising strategies for companies that don't understand how this whole social network thing works. They're used to the traditional way of doing it, and this is all changed now. The ad has to bring value. In fact, the whole concept of the advertisement that we're so used to for so many years, the Internet's turning that on its head right now.
Absolutely. And it's all coming down to content. It's providing valuable content. So Twitter, that's really the biggest thing. If you haven't experienced it, experience Twitter. That's about the best way to really get a grasp on how to make it work.
Absolutely.
Then we have Second Life. And Second Life is starting to pick up a lot of momentum in a lot of different places. And I'm seeing a lot of Second Life. For those who don't know what it is, it's more of virtual community. That's about the best way.
It looks like a video. World. It looks like a video game.
It looks like a video game where you can go in and become a character and live out a different virtual life.
And you create an avatar and you walk through this world. But now people are starting to use it in
training. There are companies like Microsoft. There's companies that are using it for training. You will actually go to a campus. You might go to the Hewlett-Packard campus, and a professional speaker would deliver content or deliver a seminar to a group of people in Hewlett-Packard. It's a specific thing for them, but as the presenter looking out at everybody that's sitting there, you might have a dragon that you're talking to, and I mean, it's
whatever the avatar is.
I mean, whatever their avatar happens.
I've had some of those audiences actually.
Yeah, Godzilla and King Kong and werewolves and.
But it's I don't have a whole lot of experience. I have some friends that are on Second Life, and they're trying to get me set up with it. I've walked around a little bit, and I realize that I need somebody to take me by the virtual hand and kind of take me through the world.
Well, Second Life is very popular, but at some point you start to wonder if these people just have a lot of time on their hands.
That's a great question. Now we've talked about all these networks. who's got time to add content to YouTube, to Twitter people, to write their LinkedIn profiles, to stay active on Facebook, to do their blog, to do the podcasting? I mean,
well, here's the thing with all this. I've definitely thought about that because I know, Dennis and I, we don't have the time to really get into this and dive deep. But if you have people in your company responsible for web marketing, and they've learned the fundamentals, and they've got a good AdWords campaign, they've got a good SEO program, good email program, all the things we've talked about, then they've got to start jumping into here. This would be part of their job, and that is the fact that now they've got to get onto these social networking sites and figure out how to drive value.
And you summed it up right there. Well, we end each one of our podcasts with an action plan. So what are the key action items for the last 2 podcasts as far as social networking is concerned for all of our listeners, Tom?
Okay, well, take notes on this because I've got quite a few. Realizing that this is really an offspin of what we've talked about in another podcast, which is the idea of content distribution, getting your content, your really good content from your company out on the web. Really, the first thing on the action plan is to go visit the websites, take their tutorials, set up a basic account, click around and see how it all works. They're pretty straightforward once you get on the sites. Somebody in your company, whoever it is that's running your web marketing, needs to be the one that's designated to develop the strategy, develop the action plan, and learn about social marketing. Also, go and read books on selling, just good books on personal selling, because if you read the best books on sales, you'll find out that's what this is all about. If you do, the old traditional form of selling, just getting out there and trying to drive business, that's not going to work. You've got to use questions. You've got to add value and that sort of thing.
You're selling yourself is what it is. Even though you may work for a company and work for somebody else, you are selling yourself in social networking circles.
You really are. And there's lots of good books out there on how to do that offline, and it applies to these networks as well. Ask yourself this question: is our target market on these websites? And if they are, what are they doing? And then look for how you can build communities within your market space on these sites. And be appropriate. Do things you would do offline, online, and be careful because it might backfire if you do things that are rude or inappropriate. And get rid of the ideas and the thinking of old advertising methods. Think more of content and value. In fact, really want to sum it up is what you do well offline is what you would do well online in these social networking.
Well, you heard it, folks.
Let me say, can I add a couple?
Yes.
In terms of content, the message from these 2 podcasts should be you need to be sharing with the world what you're good at. And they'll be interested if it's got any value at all. And you need to share it with a blog. You need to share it with video. You need to have a podcast if you can. And you should definitely be maintaining a LinkedIn space at the very least, and probably Facebook and MySpace, depending on your industry. You need to get it out there. And don't think of it as an impossible task. Who's going to write it all? Who's going to do it all? Don't put one person on it. Don't take it all upon yourself. Get everybody in your company to contribute a little. If you get 10 people to write a couple articles a week, that's a lot of content.
Yeah, you're situated right there. Well, folks, this has been the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. And for more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.